All right. Welcome everybody back to another episode of Lost in the 80s with Rich and Brian.
Ew.
Today we're going to be talking about a pretty, well, I guess now that we're out of school, this topic doesn't really, it's not really a sour note, but for my wife today, maybe it was because she's a teacher and she actually had to go to school today and it's August 4th. So pretty crazy how quick school starts year after year. But anyway, yeah, we're going to be talking about the first day of school and just kind of back in the 80s, how you got ready for it. Usually I feel like you started prepping, what, mid August, maybe first part of
Yeah,
August.
for sure. Mhm.
Um, I remember when we would go on vacation, we would usually go in the first part of August. And I remember doing some school shopping, like at outlet malls and, things like that when I was younger. So, yeah, I guess maybe you start prepping 3, 4 weeks ahead of time to get ready for it. But Rich, go ahead and this was kind of your thing that you want to make sure we talked about pretty soon. So I'll let you go ahead and kick us off here.
Yeah, I mean, going back to school in the 80s, of course, we were in elementary school in the 80s. So we went through, I think, probably two phases of going back to school. Because when you're in early elementary, I mean, kindergarten, you're just drooling and hoping not to pee your pants. There's not a whole lot of stuff going on. But as you're, first, second, third grade, I think going back to school is all about the stuff that you were going to bring, like the pencil box and the trapper keeper and those kinds of things. So I, I know that my mom, I'm sure, took me back to school shopping for clothes in the second grade, but I don't rem- I don't remember that. Like there's no nostalgia around what kind of stuff I wore in the first and second grade. But as we transitioned out of that fourth, fifth, sixth grade, going back to school was way more about the shopping trip and buying the clothes that we were going to wear. First day outfits, all those kinds of things. So, I think for me, the things that I remember about it or that I contrast about it and what I hear now is shopping trips were not an everyday thing. Like how many days a week or how many days a month did you go to the mall when you were in the fourth grade or fifth grade?
2, 3 times maybe.
Yeah. And I would say my number is that or maybe less. I know I always went right at the beginning of the summer or maybe the end of the school year to get like my shorts and t-shirts and stuff for summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go to sporting goods stores throughout the year because I'd need to get new cleats or new basketball shoes or new, socks or whatever that you were going to use for that sport that you were getting ready to play. But just to go to Lazarus or J.C. Penney's or Sears and Roebuck or whatever, LS Airs. Those were the four anchor stores at our mall. Um, I didn't go very often. Where now my kids, my two middle daughters who are adults but still live in my house, they go to Target every single day. There has not been a day of their lives in the last year or two that they have not been at Target, either to pick up a to go order. I can't imagine we can even live in our house because it should have so much stuff in it. Or just there's a Starbucks in Target, so they'll get a Starbucks and walk around and buy a few things or whatever. But shopping trips, just in general, in the 80s were you did it much less often. And then, of course, there was no Walmart then, at least for me. You guys didn't have Walmart in the 80s, right?
We did.
Oh, you did?
Sullivan
Okay.
got a Walmart, I want to say when I was in third grade.
Wow.
So that would have been, gosh, when was that? 1986. Yeah, I'm gonna say 86 is, yeah, we got a Walmart. But you have to also remember where I'm at here. Even though it's a small town, Highway 41, which literally runs from the upper peninsula in Michigan all the way down to Miami, Florida. It's like the longest north to south road in the country. Um, runs right through Sullivan. So I'm sure that had something to do with it. Your typical small Midwest town, a Walmart would not have made sense in the 80s.
But travelers, I guess, maybe needed places to stop. And did your Walmart have grocery, or was it just
Mm.
the pre
No,
super Walmart?
it's still just this. It has a refrigerated section now, but back then it didn't.
Okay. So we would go to either Kmart, Target, or Hills. Those were our kind of three. There was a service merchandise also, but and I think my dad went there for things. Maybe it had like tools and stuff, but I primarily did my back to school shopping at Hills. That was our, that was kind of the store that we did. But I just remember, so some of the things I remember, and I want to get your thoughts about these, like the wooden pencil boxes, or not wooden, but cardboard pencil boxes that like held all your treasures and went in your desk. Those to me were very important to get a cool one of those, a Transformers or a GI Joe or whatever. And then I think your backpack and lunchbox and thermos was probably those were probably my two like go-to things early.
Yeah, the the backpack was number one, at least for me. And then lunchbox would have been number two. Um, I can't remember. I always pictured that like supply that little box. I pictured that being plastic. Maybe I just didn't get a cool one. I don't remember that ever having like logos or anything on it. I just remember like a
Yeah,
typical brown or black or whatever. Um,
yeah,
and
they
they
had
also had there was the things inside the Trapper Keeper that had the like the zipper. I remember like you'd
yeah.
put stuff in that too. Um, but yeah, I don't remember the wooden pencil box with logos on it
Yeah, it was a
or
cardboard
cardboard.
with yeah, and it kind of when you shut the lid, you could kind it kind of made a little clunk. And they had them
Yeah.
with different like cartoon characters and stuff on them. I because and this is maybe not a thing that was popular at every school, but Unionville School had pencil dispensers,
Hmm.
and you could put a quarter in, and you would get two pencils. And, turn the knob, and it would spit pencils out like it spit gum, and the pencils would be different, like themed things, and you would want to get them all. So
Yeah.
like there
We
were
we
white
we had that. Yeah, we had that too.
Yeah, well, there were white pencils that had like not race cars, but like car makes and models on them. So I remember it
Hmm.
had like the Ferrari Testarossa and the Lamborghini Countach and all of those. I don't even know if I'm saying those names right, but I just remember as a kid, like wanting to fill that little pencil box up with all of the, like, it was almost like collecting baseball cards or, Garbage Pail Kids or whatever. Um, so those things, yeah, the lunchbox, I always had to have cool or what I thought was cool at the time. I'm sure they're probably not. And I do remember when it switched, like probably my third grade year from a metal lunchbox to a plastic one.
Hmm.
I don't think the metal ones were as pop. I had a Star Wars metal lunchbox, and I bet that bad boy is probably worth some cheddar now if I
Yeah,
still
for
have
sure.
it. But then I went to I remember I got a blue plastic lunchbox that maybe had, um, what was the cartoon that had like people in space and they all had
Jetsons.
birds. No, they were like it was like same as Thundercats kind of or something, but they all had birds. Silverhawks. Do you remember
Oh,
that?
okay. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So I had a blue Silverhawks lunchbox, and that was probably third grade. Um, so I just remember like the smell, I think, of going back to school is probably the
Yeah.
thing that, you
So
know, strikes me the most.
we've been doing some renovating at my mom's house, and this was probably a month ago. But I found three lunch boxes. One was metal, one was a Rambo, and it was
Okay,
like
nice.
camouflage. That was the one that was metal. Um, one was He Man. That was blue plastic, and the other was I want to say Dukes of Hazard. Um, Now crazy story about the He Man one. So inside of that one, there were still two. Um, so in the 80s when there were basketball packs, let's see, 86, 87, 88, I think up to 89, there'd be a sticker in each pack. And I still have one, the lunchbox has Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins. Dominique was my favorite player, but obviously everybody loved Michael Jordan. So I peeled the stickers and put them inside of the lunchbox. Um,
Nice.
yeah. So, but yeah, the lunchbox was cool. The thermos, obviously, I mean, everybody wants a cool thermos. But yeah, those things
RGB2
today are worth a lot
thermos.
of money.
Yeah, lunchtime itself, I think, and I haven't obviously been to school in a long time, um, but I remember lunch as being like I think now because of just the society we live in, that probably the lunchroom is way different. Um, but I loved lunchtime in elementary school. Like I absolutely loved the little milk cartons, like the chocolate milk ones.
Hmm.
Those were incredible. I loved the rectangle pizza with the divots in the back.
Yeah.
Like I would bring my own lunch most days, but I would buy school lunch on the rectangle pizza day and on steak fingers day.
Say that
Like
again.
rectangle pizza and then the steak fingers.
What is a
Y-
steak finger?
You know, you haven't had steak fingers?
I
It's
don't
like
know what that
chicken
means.
strips, but made of steak.
Oh, you called them steak fingers.
Yeah, I think everyone in the world calls them steak fingers
Do
except
they
you.
still make? I've never heard of that in my life.
Yes, they still make steak fingers right now. They're not like a cow's fingers or anything. They're just strips of beef, like
Uh
deep
huh.
fried. They're really good. You got to go
Wow.
buy some frozen steak fingers tonight.
I've literally never. That's a term I've never heard. That's crazy.
Oh, okay, yeah. That so
So,
I enjoyed lunch for those things, but then my do you remember Squeeze Its?
mhm.
The drinks? Yeah, like
I
I
do.
was a big Squeeze It guy.
Yeah, I like Capri Suns.
Yeah, Capri Suns
That
were
was my
everybody's
favorite.
go-to.
That
Yeah,
and the little high C box.
yeah, juice
Those are my
boxes.
two favorite drinks.
Yeah, I
Um.
loved all of that. So I was a
So
big lunch kid. Obviously, I was a chubby little kid anyway, but I loved the, just kind of the whole camaraderie of lunchtime, sitting with your same buddies and, going out on to recess and playing. We played football every day at recess. Just such a good time. And I remember just gearing up for that, kind of, uh, relationship building time, I guess, at lunch and recess. That was definitely my
yeah,
favorite time of day.
I I remember one of the most. It's almost like opening a Christmas gift from someone you don't really know. You're like, this could be awesome, or I'm going to have to pretend that this is great. When you found out what class you were in,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
I still remember to this day the one time I was in fourth grade. My teacher was Mr. Thrasher, and I literally had like no close friends in that class. Like for the first time ever, I didn't have anybody that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is someone I talk to, you know, daily or weekly or hang out, go to their house. I didn't have one person, and it was devastating. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that was always
Did
exciting
did
yet
you end up
fearful at the same
making
time.
did you end up making friends in that class,
Well,
or
yeah, of
did you just
course,
get the
yeah,
whole year?
yeah. It's just that, as a let's see, I guess I would have been nine going, I would have turned 10 that December of that fourth grade year. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, I mean, I always made friends, but it was just, I'd never experienced it before. I just always had, I'd always had two or three good buddies in every single class I was ever, because obviously that was a big deal back then because you didn't switch rooms.
Yeah.
I don't think we switched rooms until I'm pretty sure it was sixth grade.
We didn't switch
Um,
rooms till 7th grade.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was tough. But yeah, you just like anything, you get through it, you find a way, and you end up becoming friends with other people, but it was still a weird feeling knowing that all your other good friends are together in other classes and you're not part of it. That was always tough.
Yeah, we had so did I'm sure your school did this too, like, occasionally there'd be some overflow, so you'd have a split class? You'd have, like, first, second split or second, third split.
I know
Um,
what you mean, but no, we didn't have to do that.
yeah, so I remember going into 2nd grade, there were two classes, I don't remember who both of them were, but Mrs. Stalter's class is the one you wanted to be in, and that's where I was at, and my buddies were all in there. And we went to the meet the teacher night, like weirdly being in 2nd grade or 3rd grade. I can't remember which one. It was weird. Yeah, it was 2nd grade. I just remember her going, now some of the kids who might be able to like work on their own a little bit better might have to be in a 1st, 2nd grade split. Uh, but as of right now, you're in my class. So happy for you. I played baseball with her daughter and, like, which was again weird. Jenny Stalter was only one of 2 girls in our little league. Um, but all of that, like, I remember leaving the school that day and telling my mom, like as a 2nd grader, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to that freaking 1st, 2nd split. Like, I hate that. And it was literally, I bet there was 6 of us. And I'm not going to say everybody else in that class was a huge nerd. I'm not going to say that out loud. But you can imagine the 6 kids or 7 kids that they picked that went to like could work on their own without really a teacher giving them 100% of their attention. So that
Hmm.
year sucked because I was in a room full of 1st graders, um, and I just did my work kind of by myself in 2nd grade. So
Yeah.
let's transition though from like those early years where it was all about backpacks, lunch boxes, pencil boxes, collecting your cool pencils, all that sort of stuff. For me, it was starting 4th grade for sure, but definitely 5th and 6th. Everything kind of switched to clothes. Is that kind of what happened for you?
Uh, I can remember now. Well, I say I can remember. I want to say fourth grade, third or fourth grade, I would say. But I remember um, the Coca-Cola T-shirts, or not T-shirts. I'm sorry. They were like long and they had like the 3-button collar. But I remember being so excited about getting a Coca-Cola shirt, my first one. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I don't.
They were big, at least in Sullivan. That was a big deal. Um, I mean, it was like I had to ask for it, like for my birthday. Like it wasn't just like, oh yeah, let's go pick this shirt out because they were. I mean, obviously, I don't know prices back then, but it was not your typical like, hey, let's go get an Indiana University hoodie. Which
Yeah.
back then was probably 15.99.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was like a 30-40 dollar shirt, and again, you're talking about for a 9-year-old kid. Um,
Yeah. That
but
was
yeah,
unheard of. My dad would have had
so
kittens.
I remember, I remember the Coke shirts. I remember, you remember Max Headroom?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I remember having his T-shirt. I remember getting that on vacation. Getting ready to start school. I mean, I probably would have been 2nd, 3rd grade, maybe. Um, I remember always thinking sunglasses were cool back then too. Like I wanted to have a pair of sunglasses. And back then, like you had like at least me, like I had like the band that like goes on the earpieces, so
Oh,
they
yeah.
hang
Yeah.
around, so you don't lose them. Um, but yeah, clothes were definitely starting to be something, 3rd and 4th grade.
I'm gonna throw out some names for you here, and some of these I didn't. Some of this is more towards the girls, but like so, Guess jeans probably around 5th grade started to make a like you had to have Guess jeans, like you had to. Um, and then of course Nike was. I think my first pair of Nikes was 5th grade. But in 4th grade, I remember before Nike was, I mean, at least in our little town, was huge. I got those white and green Reeboks. Like they were all white, but just had the green Reebok on them.
Hmm.
Those were huge. But remember, there were things like, and I never knew how to pronounce it, but is it Esprit or Spirit or
Oh yeah.
Esprit
I don't
or
know.
what?
I don't know how you pronounce it still.
Yeah, but like the white Keds, the LA gear with the big laces, the Esprit, that was kind of what all the girls wore. And then guys by fifth grade had all transitioned to Nike, everybody. But
Hmm.
here's some other stuff. Like, do you remember Ocean Pacific?
Yeah,
Ocean Pacific
absolutely.
was a big, and then I'm going to tell you the biggest deal of all in Unionville, Indiana, Varney France t-shirts. Do you
Wow,
remember those?
I do.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
do.
that
I don't
was,
necessarily. I don't know when I started wearing them, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah, fifth grade is when I like that became Ocean Pacific, Gotcha, Body Glove, Varney France. All of those places were sold at like the same stores in the mall. All those items were sold at the same stores in the mall. So I remember like it really, that is when life changes for human beings at that timeline where things really become social status things, like about what you wear. Before that, it was all just, hey, I will trade you this bologna sandwich for your extra, little Debbie, or we're going to collect all these Garbage Pail Kids. I love Garbage Pail Kids, by the way. They were amazing. If somebody listening doesn't know what they are, look them up. They were fantastic. But I think, fourth, fifth, sixth grade is when, it had to be like if you showed up in clothes that your mom bought at Target or Walmart, those clothes did just as good a job. They might have even looked nicer. People just treated you differently for some reason. And so going back to
Hmm.
school was more anxious for me as I got older because you wanted to make sure that what you were wearing fit in and, that
Yeah.
everybody else thought you looked cool.
What was your what was usually your thought the night before your first day?
Um, so we already knew our classes by then, right? Like, I don't know if you did that, like went to the meet the
Yeah.
teacher or
Hmm.
yeah. So we all knew, and especially because the majority of the guys I went to school with and were friends with, we all played baseball at Danny Smith Park. And so that, the all stars last till almost right up when school starts. So your buddies, if you were on the all star team, we would be talking about like, oh, I'm in Mrs. Powell's class. And everybody's like, oh God, that's the worst. Like there was a lot of back and forth there. So I already knew my class and knew most of the people in the class. So I was primarily, I was maybe a weird kid. I was really excited to get back to social gathering with my friends. Um, because I went to my grandma's daycare where I was probably until about fourth grade, I went there and I was probably the oldest kid. So going back to school meant not hanging out with first graders at the daycare and going and being
Hmm.
with my buddies. So I was never one of those guys who was like, oh God, school's getting ready to start again. I hate it. Like I was
Yeah.
always pretty pumped. I was pumped to go back.
I was excited. I just remember always having my, I had my outfit picked out exactly the what, laying out on the floor and, the, well, I guess, yeah, it would have still been shorts at that, August in the Midwest. But yeah, I remember the excitement of just the feel because you think about summer, you're basically, you're in cleats all the time or you're in just like play shoes, you're running around in mud or playing with your friends outside, like worn down shoes, but the feeling of, of what it felt like when you had like new socks and new shoes when you put those on for the first, the first full day. Cause I never wore that. Like I may have had the shoes for 2 weeks, but
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
didn't wear
wear
it
them.
until day one.
Yeah. You want them to be clean and just that feeling and the smell of them. Um, that was exciting. I also remember, and we've got a little bit more time here, but going back to lunch, like you're, my typical go-to, we talked about drinks, but like, um, almost every time I just did a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, um, some Doritos. Now I didn't get like the plastic or the bag. I got Doritos that my mom would put like in a Ziploc bag. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I didn't
sandwich
get
bag.
like
Yeah.
yeah. So it was that. Um, I remember in the third grade, and I've looked this up. They have not sold these. I don't know why. I mean, for being in America where everybody is, tries to be as unhealthy as they can be, it seems like there was uh, a product named Choc. It was called Choco Bliss. Do
Oh
you
yeah, I
remember?
remember Choco Bliss. Yeah,
I just thought it was like it was. It had like the hard. It was like basically like a Twinkie, but it had like the like drizzled chocolate on top that kind of hardened, and
yeah.
then it was like chocolate cake, and then it was chocolate icing inside of it. So it's like an overload of chocolate, which I guess is why it's called Choco Bliss. But yeah, that, and then your Capri Sun peanut butter and jelly sandwich and Doritos. That was like that was my go-to uh, lunch menu, basically.
Yeah, my mom did the same thing, bought a big bag of chips and then put them into sandwich bags or whatever.
Mhm.
So I didn't, but I always had a little Debbie of some kind. And I don't really like the peanut butter and Nutter Bar ones, but for some reason I had those a lot.
Yeah, I was
But
never a fan of those.
yeah, I had those a lot, and I had fudge rounds a lot. And I'll be honest, I like the fudge round. I had one, I bought one like 2 or 3 years ago, and it tasted like plastic.
I think they're
So
very now.
I don't know if fudge rounds have gotten worse or if I just my tastes have evolved a little bit. But I
We
definitely think that day before, yeah, you've got your new outfit laid out, you know what you're having for lunch, you've got all your stuff there. The smell of your what are those called? Were those called like pearl pink? Those erasers? Were they
Oh
pearl
yeah.
brand? Yeah,
Hmm.
like you had a few of those that gave off a real distinct smell. A lot of number two pencils. Like I was always, and then I do want to touch on one more thing. I know we got a few minutes. At some point, it changed from backpacks and loose items to trapper keepers became like a massive part of your school shopping because
Yeah.
your entire scholastic achievement from probably fourth, fifth, sixth grade, and even for me through junior high, it all centered around your trapper keeper. Like
Yeah.
because it kept, not only did you have all your subjects in there, your notebooks, you had your pens, your pencils. We had other stuff. You had a comic book in there, or you had baseball cards in there, or
Hmm.
whatever. But you had to select a really good trapper keeper. That was a
I remember
big,
going to
big deal.
trying to find cool folders.
Yeah.
Now that this was, I was talking about, finding the lunch boxes. At the same time, I found an old Hulk Hogan folder, but it was so old. I just, as a kid, he was always, Hulk with the yellow tights and boots.
Yeah.
But he didn't start like that. My folder that I had, he was in like aqua blue tights. So he was not in his
Huh.
yellow. So I don't know if this probably would have been, gosh, I don't know when it would have been, first, second grade. Cause I just remember watching him on TV, and I never saw him in anything other than yellow back in those days.
Yeah. I don't remember anything other than yellow either. But I know he was a regional star before he was national. So maybe it was one of his
Yeah.
regional personas.
Maybe before WWF, man, I don't know. But anyway, I do remember they had the folders with the, you get like a baseball player or, a dinosaur. You could just pick random folders from Walmart or Kmart or Hills or Hill. You mentioned Hills. Yeah, Hills did have they had a good section of school stuff for sure.
I remember, and this is one of my. I'm going to throw two other things at you real quick, but before that, one of my greatest failures, and this would have been, I think, in the either 89 or 90, somewhere in there. I remember when the neon stuff was like, do you remember Lisa Frank stuff?
I do
I mean,
not.
yeah, obviously mostly girls were buying things that were Lisa Frank, but there were trapper keepers that were like very bright and very colorful and very 80s looking right at the tail end of the 80s.
Hmm.
And I was going into seventh grade, so it was probably 89. Um, And I remember buying like this aqua trapper keeper. And just remember seeing like it was so colorful. I'm like, I'm going to grab that one. I didn't fully look at it well. And I got home and it was like, had like yellow and pink squigglies on it. And I was like, oh crap, I'm going to, and my mom is like, well, yeah, like, we're not buying another trapper keeper. Like, that's the one you bought. And I remember like carrying that to school in seventh grade and like never letting that thing out of my backpack because like my buddies, yeah, all have like the Road Warriors or like whatever. And I've got like this aqua pink and yellow trapper keeper that I thought it was just all aqua and it was
Hmm.
just like a cool blue color. And then I realized it had all this other stuff on it when I got it home. So that was, but remember when we did actual work at school, there was no, I mean, I know you know this, there was no internet. So to look anything up, we had to go to the encyclopedias in our classroom. And then
Yeah.
I did not have, and you might be different. I remember the first year we had a computer in our class and it was fifth grade.
Yeah. I want to say for me, it was sixth. Um, because I remember if you got your work done in time or if you, I don't know, did whatever, it was like a treat. I remember
You could
playing
play Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's such like just a brutal game with a lot of like sadness. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, your entire family has died due to malaria.
Yeah.
I'm like 11 years old. Like
Died
this
of,
is like a horror movie.
yeah, died of
Um,
dysentery all the time. Yeah, it was crazy. Our computer in fifth grade, the primary function of that computer is Mr. Shields. Again, this is the second time I've shouted out Mr. Shields in one of these. He was the best. Um, he started, and I remember looking back, he was probably in his 30s, and he's like, he has this cool new gadget that nobody else has. And he had a program on it where it started counting at one, and we were going to let it run. We let it run through the whole school year and just up in like upper right hand corner. I can't remember what crazy, and it was like, going through hundreds and hundreds of numbers a day or thousands of numbers a day. And I can't remember what it got to at the end of the school year, but that was like,
that's
that
pretty
was what
fine.
we used the computer for, is just that countdown and to play Oregon Trail. It served no other purpose in our classroom.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Um, let just one final topic. I know we're a little over time here, but we have to talk about recess. Like
Yeah.
the excitement of when it's a nice day out. Obviously you don't get those through the whole year. At least where we grew up in the Midwest. Um, but recess is probably where you truly going back to kindergarten, first grade. Those like that's probably where most of us like really found out how we stacked up against others from a sporting standpoint. Whether you're playing kickball, um, freeze tag, or dodgeball, whatever it is, like you learn kind of how you measured up because you're with your peers.
Yeah.
And yeah, recess was a big deal. I remember now obviously it's a lot more structured, walking single file, but I remember it was just like a free for all. Like, people just
Jailbreak,
running
man.
everywhere.
Everybody's heading out.
Yeah, there was no like rhyme or reason to how or how we lined up, and it was just like, well, you remember in the movie Christmas Story. Like, and I know that's back, I think that was set in the 40s, but it's like the bell rang, like, oh, so we got to go, like, but there was no one like corralling us, to
Yeah.
get us back. It's just like you're on your own, just don't be an idiot and know when to go in. Um, Obviously that does not exist today. But that was a fun time to be competitive against kids your age, and I think that's how a lot of us decided, what sport we're going to try to play and who we're going to be friends with, things like that.
Yeah. How you stacked up against your peers and people who weren't sporty like that. That's probably where they also, I can't really speak to that, but that's probably where they also figured out what, things interest them and they found their, their group, right? They're like their people. My favorite thing about recess of all time is a metal chain net on the basketball goal.
Great sound.
Nothing sounds as cool as hitting a jump shot on a chain net, and that I can't even mimic the sound. It's just incredible. We had a nice area to play football, and we did that most days. But if you had a smaller group of guys who were playing something, like if some of your buddies happen to not be there or whatever, then you would pivot to 3-on-3 basketball. Our courts weren't big enough for 5-on-5.
Yeah.
But I love the chain net. I loved our little kickball field with the backstop. Recess was just like you said, it was where you figured out, okay, well, these two guys are the fastest two guys in school, but I got a better arm. I can hit the ball farther. I can throw the ball farther. So was and you kind of built your school. Your junior high and high school friendships started at recess in elementary school.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. No, obviously we could go on and talk about a lot of different things, but this at least just gives us some things to think about as far as how things were in the '80s growing up as a kid in elementary school, and the back to school feeling. So hopefully this has brought back some good nostalgic memories for all of you people listening. So we appreciate you checking us out, and you've been lost in the '80s with Rich and Brian, and we are out.
Later on.